All right, so uh, you sent over a whole stack of articles here about Indonesia's security forces,
Yeah,
the TNI and Polri and Densus 88,
right.
and let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, it's fascinating how we're seeing these forces involved in so much more
Right.
than just like traditional security. They're
Yeah.
peacekeepers,
Hmm.
engineers, and even playing a key role in countering extremism
Right.
in some pretty unexpected ways.
Okay, so we're not just talking about soldiers and cops here.
Yeah.
We're talking about like a complex network of organizations
Mm-hmm.
tackling some really tough issues, both
Yeah.
at home and abroad.
Absolutely.
Where do you think we should start digging in?
Well, the activities of Densus 88 this past year have been particularly noteworthy.
Okay.
They've apprehended a staggering 181 terrorism suspects.
Wow.
That number alone tells you just how active they've been.
181.
Right.
That's incredible.
It is.
But it also makes you wonder, are there really that many more terrorists out there?
Uh,
Or is something else driving this surge in activity?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of how Densus 88 is evolving.
Okay.
We're seeing a clear shift towards more preventative measures.
Mm-hmm.
They're working to stop radicalization before it even leads to violence,
Okay.
particularly within institutions like state-owned enterprises.
So they're not just waiting for a bomb to go off. They're trying to, like,
Exactly.
get ahead of the problem.
Yes.
Can you give me an example of what that looks like in practice?
Sure. One example is their work with PLN, the electric company.
Okay.
They're working to counter extremist ideologies within the company itself.
The electric company.
Yeah.
That's not where I would expect to find a hotbed of terrorism.
Right.
What's the thinking behind that?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
PLN is a vital part of Indonesian infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
If extremists were to infiltrate and disrupt their operations, it could have a devastating impact on the entire country.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So how are they going about this?
Yeah.
Are they like monitoring employees, giving presentations, or what?
It seems to be a multifaceted approach.
Okay.
And one of the most interesting aspects is their collaboration with former members
Okay.
of Jemaah Islamiyah, or JI.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
They're working with former terrorists?
They are.
That seems counterintuitive, to say the least.
It might seem that way at first,
Yeah.
but it's actually quite a strategic and culturally nuanced approach.
Right.
Densus 88 recently observed a meeting where former JI leaders were present even with their families.
Wow.
This kind of engagement is rooted in the Indonesian concept of
Yeah.
Musyawarah untuk Mufakat.
Okay, for those of us who aren't fluent in Indonesian,
Right.
what does that mean exactly?
It essentially means deliberation for consensus.
Okay.
It's this deep-seated belief in dialogue and understanding as a way to resolve conflict and bring people together.
Mhm.
So in this case, it's about using former extremists
Right.
to help de-radicalize others and reintegrate them back into society.
So it's not just about locking people up. It's about bringing them back into the fold.
That's right.
It's a much more human-centered approach, I guess you could say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that punishment alone won't solve the problem of terrorism.
Right.
You need to address the root causes, the ideologies, and the social dynamics that lead people down that path.
Okay, so that's Densus 88, tackling extremism on the home front.
Mm.
But what about the TNI?
Yeah,
We've got some articles here about their international peacekeeping efforts.
absolutely. The TNI has become increasingly active in UN peacekeeping missions,
Okay.
particularly in Africa.
I remember reading about their recent deployment to the Central African Republic,
Yeah.
or CAR,
Right.
240 Indonesian peacekeepers as part of the UN's MINUSCA mission.
Yeah,
That's a significant commitment.
it is. And they're facing some serious challenges there.
Like what?
The CRR is landlocked, which makes accessing resources incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine that complicates things quite a bit.
It does.
What exactly are they doing there? What are their tasks?
They're involved in a wide range of activities,
Oh.
from building houses and roads
Hmm.
to clearing landmines and unexploded bombs
Wow.
through explosive ordnance disposal, or EOD.
So they're not just keeping the peace, they're literally building it from the ground up.
Yeah,
That's impressive,
it is.
especially given the challenging environment.
And keep in mind,
Yeah.
they're operating in two separate locations within the KAIAR,
Okay.
Bangui, the capital, and Berberati.
Okay.
This requires a high level of coordination and logistical expertise.
Okay, so we're seeing the TNI stepping up on the international stage,
Yeah.
taking on these complex and demanding peacekeeping roles.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think this says about Indonesia's place in the world?
This mission to the higher
Right.
and their increasing involvement in UN peacekeeping overall is a clear indication that Indonesia is becoming a more prominent player in global security.
It's not just about protecting their own borders anymore. They're taking on a more active role in promoting peace and stability on a global scale.
Exactly. And it's a reflection of Indonesia's growing economic and political influence. They're taking on responsibilities commensurate with their standing in the world.
Okay, so we've got Densus 88 preventing terrorism at home.
Right.
And the TNI promoting peace abroad.
Yeah.
It sounds like Indonesia's security forces are becoming a real force to be reckoned with.
They are.
But of course, no organization is without its problems, right?
That's true. No institution is immune to challenges and controversies.
Right.
And recently there have been a few incidents that have raised concerns.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do tell.
Okay.
What kind of controversies are we talking about?
Well, there was a recent scandal involving TNI personnel engaging in online gambling.
Oh, wow.
It might seem like a relatively minor issue,
Yeah.
but it's raised questions about discipline and conduct within the ranks.
Yeah, it's not exactly the image you want to project when you're trying to be a global peacekeeper.
Right.
How has the TNI responded to this scandal?
The TNI commander has taken a very strong stance,
Okay.
making it clear that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated. He's emphasized that there will be criminal sanctions for those involved.
So it's not just a slap on the wrist, there are real consequences.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're trying to send a clear message that they take this seriously.
Absolutely. They recognize that maintaining public trust is essential.
Right.
And that incidents like this can erode that trust.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking steps to address the issue and reinforce their commitment to ethical conduct.
Okay, so that's one controversy involving the TNI.
Right.
What other challenges have these forces been grappling with?
Well, there's also been an incident that has raised questions about interagency relationships and potential tensions. There were allegations that Densus 88 was involved in surveillance of the Attorney General's office during a corruption investigation.
Hey, hold on.
Yeah.
The police were spying on the prosecutors.
That's what's being alleged.
Why would they do that?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one that has fueled a lot of speculation and debate.
Okay.
The specific case involved an investigation into corruption related to tin ore.
Okay, so a high-profile corruption case.
Right.
I can see how that might get messy.
Yeah.
What's been the official response to these allegations?
The chief of police has denied any wrongdoing and insisted on collaboration between law enforcement agencies. But this incident, regardless of the truth behind the allegations, has highlighted the potential for friction and mistrust between these powerful institutions.
Yeah, you can imagine how that kind of thing can create a climate of suspicion and undermine cooperation.
Exactly. And it raises important questions about oversight, accountability, and the balance of power within Indonesia's security apparatus.
It sounds like there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye.
There is.
We've got the TNI dealing with a gambling scandal.
Right.
Densus 88 potentially spying on the Attorney General's office, and
let's not forget the Polri.
oh, right, the
They've been incredibly busy as well.
Yeah.
And their work goes far beyond traditional law enforcement.
Right. I'm looking at an article here about their efforts to tackle natural resource crimes. Apparently, they've handled over 8,500 cases.
It's a massive number.
That's a massive number.
Yeah.
8,500 cases.
Wow.
What kind of crimes are we talking about here? Illegal logging, mining, or something else?
It's a wide range of activities that threaten Indonesia's environment and natural resources.
Okay.
We're talking about illegal logging, mining, fishing, and even wildlife trafficking.
Wow, that's a huge undertaking.
It is.
Why is the Polri so focused on these kinds of crimes?
Well, Indonesia is home to some of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the world. Protecting those resources is not just an environmental issue.
Right.
It's an economic and national security issue as well.
That makes sense. Illegal logging and mining can devastate local communities,
Absolutely.
fuel corruption, and even contribute to regional instability.
Exactly. And the Polri is playing a key role in trying to stop it.
Okay.
They're working to enforce environmental laws, dismantle criminal networks, and raise awareness about the importance of sustainable resource management.
It's great to hear that they're taking this seriously.
Yeah.
It's not just about catching criminals.
Right.
It's about protecting Indonesia's natural heritage
Yeah.
for future generations.
Absolutely. And this focus on natural resource crimes highlights a broader shift in how we think about security. It's not just about military might or traditional law enforcement anymore.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that environmental degradation and resource depletion can pose just as much of a threat as terrorism or conventional warfare.
It's a more holistic view of security.
Exactly.
Recognizing that everything is interconnected.
Exactly. And it's a view that is increasingly shaping the way Indonesia's security forces operate, both at home and abroad.
Wow.
Yeah, it really is a more interconnected way of looking at it these days, you know?
Right.
It's fascinating to see how these trends are playing out in Indonesia.
It makes you realize that security isn't just about, like, guns and soldiers.
Right.
It's about protecting people, resources, and, like, the future of the country as a whole.
Precisely. And it's important to remember that these trends we're seeing with the TNI, Polri, and Densus 88 aren't happening in a vacuum.
Right.
They're deeply rooted in Indonesia's history and culture.
You know, now that you mention it, I'm thinking back to those former JI members and their families at that meeting that Densus 88 observed.
Right.
It's clear that this approach of dialogue and reintegration is very much in line with Indonesian values.
Absolutely. It's not about seeking revenge or punishment.
Right.
It's about understanding reconciliation and ultimately bringing people back into the fold of society.
Yeah.
It's a very Indonesian way of approaching these complex issues.
And it's not just limited to counterterrorism efforts.
Right.
We see this approach reflected in the TNI's work as well.
Yeah.
Think about their involvement in the Shihayar. They're not just there to provide security.
Right.
They're actively engaged in building houses, roads, and clearing landmines.
It's a holistic approach to peacekeeping.
Right.
They're not just trying to prevent conflict. They're trying to create the conditions for lasting peace and stability. And this, too, has historical roots.
Okay.
The TNI has long been involved in civilian affairs, from infrastructure development to disaster relief.
So they're not just soldiers in the traditional sense. They're nation builders in a way.
Exactly. And this historical context helps us understand their expanding role in international peacekeeping missions.
It's interesting to see how those domestic roles and experiences translate onto the global stage.
Yeah, it is. And we see this holistic approach reflected in the Polri's work as well.
Okay.
They're not just focused on arresting criminals. They're also engaged in community outreach and crime prevention programs.
It's about building trust with communities and working together to create a safer environment for everyone.
Precisely. And let's not forget their efforts to combat natural resource crimes.
Right.
That's a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
And it speaks to a broader understanding of security that goes beyond just protecting people from violence.
Right. It's about protecting the environment, the economy, and ultimately the future of Indonesia.
Absolutely. It's a recognition that environmental degradation and resource depletion can pose just as much of a threat as terrorism or crime.
It really does make you think about the definition of security in a whole new light.
It does.
It's not just about military strength or law enforcement. It's about protecting the well-being of a nation in all its facets.
I agree. It's a multidimensional concept that encompasses social, economic, and environmental factors, as well as the traditional security concerns. But of course, even with this broader understanding of security, there are still challenges.
We've touched on a few already, like the TNI gambling scandal and the allegations against Densus 88.
Right.
But I imagine there are other hurdles these forces are facing. Right?
Yeah, of course. One recurring issue is the question of funding.
Okay.
The Polri in particular has a vast mandate and a wide range of responsibilities, but their resources are often stretched thin.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem.
Right.
They're responsible for everything from investigating terrorism to protecting the environment to managing traffic.
Right.
That's a lot to juggle on a limited budget.
Exactly. And this raises concerns about their ability to effectively carry out all of their duties.
Right.
There are also concerns about accountability and transparency.
We saw that with the allegations of Densus 88 spying on the Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
Whether or not those allegations were true, it highlights the importance of oversight and accountability.
Public trust is essential for any security force to operate effectively. And that trust can be eroded by incidents like the Tenor case, even if the allegations are ultimately unfounded.
It seems like there's a delicate balance to strike here.
Right.
Indonesia needs strong and capable security forces to address a wide range of threats. But those forces also need to be accountable and transparent to maintain public trust.
It's a challenge that many democracies face.
Right.
How do you empower your security forces to protect you without giving them so much power that they become a threat themselves?
And it's not just about the government or the security forces themselves, right?
No, it's not.
Civil society plays a crucial role as well.
Absolutely. A vibrant and engaged civil society is crucial for holding security forces accountable and ensuring they operate within the bounds of the law and respect human rights.
It takes a collective effort to get that balance right.
Indeed. It requires the participation of citizens, journalists, NGOs, and other stakeholders.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From specific incidents to the broader challenges facing these organizations, it's clear that Indonesia's security landscape is a complex and ever-changing one.
It certainly is. And it's a reflection of the country itself, a dynamic nation grappling with a wide range of internal and external pressures.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Right.
what's the key takeaway for our listener?
Okay.
What's the one thing they should remember from all of this?
I think the most important takeaway is this. Indonesia's security forces are more than just soldiers and police officers. They're complex organizations operating within a constantly evolving environment.
It's about understanding the multifaceted roles these forces play in Indonesian society.
Yeah.
And on the global stage.
Precisely. And to really understand these forces, you have to look beyond the surface to the historical, cultural, and political forces that shape their actions.
It's about connecting the dots, seeing how everything fits together.
Exactly. And with that in mind, what stands out to you from all of this information? What particularly caught your attention?
Honestly, what strikes me is how adaptable they have to be. You know, we've talked about everything from counterterrorism to peacekeeping to environmental protection.
Absolutely.
That's a huge range of responsibilities.
It's quite remarkable when you think about it. And despite the challenges, they've achieved some notable successes as well.
Yeah, let's talk about those successes.
Okay.
What are some of the accomplishments that stand out to you?
Well, the Polagri's success in handling over 8,500 natural resource crime cases is a significant achievement.
Yeah.
It demonstrates a real commitment to protecting Indonesia's environment and natural resources.
It's a win for sustainability, for the economy, and for like the long-term well-being of the country.
Absolutely.
It shows they're not just paying lip service to environmental protection.
Right.
They're putting in the work.
They are.
And on the counterterrorism front, while it's still early days, the collaboration between Densus 88 and former JI members has the potential to be a game changer.
It really does.
It's such a bold and unconventional approach.
It is.
But if it works, it could have a ripple effect, not just in Indonesia, but around the world.
Imagine if other countries struggling with extremism adopted similar strategies. It could shift the paradigm of counterterrorism efforts globally.
It's definitely something to watch.
It is.
But let's not forget about some of the unresolved issues we discussed earlier.
Okay.
What about those allegations of Densus 88 spying on the Attorney General's office during the Tenor corruption case?
Right.
Have there been any developments there?
Unfortunately, it's still a bit of a mystery.
Really?
The chief of police has denied any wrongdoing.
Right.
But the incident has undoubtedly strained relationships between these key institutions.
It makes you wonder about the dynamics at play behind the scenes.
Yeah.
What's driving these tensions? Is it purely about the Tenor case, or are there deeper political currents at work?
It's likely a combination of factors.
Right.
You have personal ambitions, bureaucratic turf wars, and potentially even political maneuvering.
Right.
It's a reminder that even within a democracy, there are power struggles and competing interests.
And those struggles can have real consequences.
They can.
If these tensions aren't addressed, they could undermine Indonesia's efforts to combat corruption and other serious threats.
Absolutely. Cooperation and trust are essential for effective governance and security.
Right.
So if we're thinking about the future of Indonesia's security forces, what are some of the key trends we should be paying attention to?
That's a great question. Where do you see things heading?
One major trend is the increasing professionalization of these forces.
Okay.
We're seeing more emphasis on training education and adopting new technologies.
It's like they're leveling up their capabilities and expertise.
Right.
And that's crucial in a world where security threats are becoming more complex and sophisticated.
Absolutely. And it's not just about technical skills.
Right.
There's also a growing focus on improving accountability and transparency within these institutions.
It's about building trust with the public.
Yeah.
And ensuring that these forces are operating within the bounds of the law.
Precisely. Another key trend to watch is Indonesia's expanding role in regional and global security. We talked about the peacekeeping mission in the KR, but there are other examples as well.
Right, like the TNI's disaster relief efforts in neighboring countries.
Yeah.
And Densus 88's collaboration with other Southeast Asian nations on counterterrorism initiatives.
Exactly. As Indonesia's economic and political influence grows, we can expect to see their security forces playing an even more prominent role on the world stage.
It's fascinating to see how these forces are evolving, adapting to new challenges and taking on greater responsibilities, both domestically and internationally.
It's a testament to their dedication and their commitment to serving Indonesia and contributing to a more peaceful and stable world.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive today.
Oh?
We've covered a lot of ground: counterterrorism, peacekeeping, environmental protection, and even some of the internal challenges these forces are facing.
It's been a truly insightful exploration of a complex and fascinating topic.
So to our listener, I hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of the TNI Polri and Densus 88. They're more than just soldiers and police officers. They're guardians of Indonesia's present and future.
And their story is far from over. As Indonesia continues to rise as a global power, the roles and responsibilities of these forces will only become more critical.
It's definitely a story worth following. So until next time, keep diving deep, keep questioning, and keep learning.